today I am going to talk to you about supply chain management. Supply chain is a necessity these days because of the competitiveness in the marketplace. Why competitiveness? So there are so many production units for a same single product, and they are all specialized location wise, distribution wise, and competitiveness in turn and in terms of price wise. So definitely if a firm wants to compete in the marketplace in a more efficient way, it has to be in coordination with the other partners in the chain. So other partners in the supply chain. So supply chain has different partners. It starts with suppliers, then the manufacturers or the producers, then it is once they produce the product, it goes to the retailer or the distributor, then from the distributor to the retailer, then retailer to the consumer. So it takes supply chain management is a case where the conduit of movement of the produce or a service, product or a service from the supplier of raw material till it goes via these chain partners to reach the customer. So when we talk about why do we need supply chains, as I told you, the competitiveness in the marketplace necessitates the operations of the supply chain. Earlier, let me get into the small history of supply chain. Earlier the industries were focused on few locations with few products in line and few markets in focus, but these days the companies have diversified in terms of, there is a geographical diversification, there is a product diversification, and there is a service diversification, and this in turn say this is the kind one scenario where the production goes. The other scenario is the consumption side, where the consumers are almost distributed throughout the world. With improving incomes, improving standards of living, the consumption is on the upscale, mainly in the developing countries, and the industries have been located in the developed countries those days, and they have started diversifying into the developing countries and to meet the local consumption needs. So the product has to move through a long chain cutting across many number of partners. So supply chain management, we essentially mean here to manage the product flow and the information flow and the money flow. Say the product flow and the information, product flow happens one way from the supplier to the consumer. The information flow happens both ways. Say for example, a feedback is being given by the consumer, will come to the distributor, retailer, manufacturer, and in turn it goes to the supplier of the raw materials. So this is one way of flow of information. The other way of flow of information is, say for example, warranty is being given to the product, a warranty or a guarantee for a product or a service. So it should flow from the supplier till the consumer. So information flows back and forth. The product flows from the supplier to the consumer, and the money flows. For example, the producer, the supplier, in fact he starts investing in his supplies to the manufacturer. Manufacturer in turn uses the raw materials to convert them into a product or a service, and he invests money in the processes. So at each point in the chain there is an investment happening. So there is a flow of money, there is a concentrated investment at each partner level, and there is a flow of money from supplier till the consumer is met, the demands of the consumer is met with. So this is one way of flow, the working capital flow, that is what we call. Then the other side, once the customer pays in the marketplace, pays for the product that he is acquiring or getting, maybe it is a service or a product, so he pays the money for the product and it flows back through to the till the supplier end. So, these are the flows that happen in the supply chain. So, supply chain management means here, say we want to optimize, make the flows more efficient, so that cost is cut at each partner level, so that the processes become cost efficient, and in turn it would reflect in the price of the product or a service that the particular chain offers. That is one way of looking at the supply chain flows. The other issue here is the responsiveness, the speed with which a retailer or a distributor responds to the needs of the customer or requirements of the customer at a particular point of time. So, maybe it is in terms of price, in terms of quality, in terms of the delivery schedules, etc., etc. So, these issues have become very important because of the existence of many manufacturing firms that compete with each other, right. Let us get into the advantages of such a such management of the partners of the supply chain in a line. So, we try to economize, for example, say when the product is to be moved from the factory to the say for example the warehouse, there is a transportation. We need to minimize the transportation distance, distribution distance, right. By the way, we are saving some money. So, the savings in money will get in terms of reflected in terms of the price as well as the profit that could be shared among the partners in the chain. Then say usually in a supply chain there is a leader who has invested more money into the processes, and he dictates the other partners to fall in line with him, and the role of the leader here would be to disseminate the flow of information and also share the profits that he gets in tune with the contribution of each of the partners, right. And over a period of time the leader in the chain invests more on technology because he has to in fact compete enormously with the other competitors in the marketplace. So, technology improves, so tracking and tracing to the source. This is another issue because say for example in especially in the food products, this tracking and tracing issue gets high importance in the European and American markets, where they want to really understand if something goes wrong with the product at the marketplace or at the customer level. They really want to trace where such problem has occurred in the chain, and this in turn helps the building up of the image for the company and brand as such in one way, and the other way to find out what has gone wrong and where and how it could be corrected through the chain. And this tracing and also the customer in turn, he wants to know about the details of the product. For example, I have seen a website that was hosted from Netherlands, which say if you go to a butcher shop, you buy a piece of meat, you want to look at how the cow looked like before it was butchered. You could go to everything is recorded from the birth of the calf till it was slaughtered. Everything is recorded, the feeding ratio is recorded, and the final parameters before butchering is all recorded. So, if you as a consumer, if you want to look at all these aspects, you can. So, that is how the kind of information flow helps the people in making decisions. So, tracing and tracking is one of the very important issues in terms of safety of the product and in terms of satisfying the customer's requirements. Then naturally if such things have to happen, some say a leader in the chain has to invest more. As I told you, the partners of the supply chain, the major partners are, it always starts with the suppliers. So, suppliers are the people who supply the raw materials for the processing. Then the second partner would be the manufacturer, and once the manufacturer manufactures the product or a service, he passes it on to the wholesaler or distributor, and from where it goes to the retailer and ultimately to the customers or consumers or whatever it is. So, there are usually two ways in which the whole supply chain is looked at, the cycle view and the push or pull view. cycle view, as I have been explaining, cycle view in turn explains how the product flows from one part of the cycle to the other cycle. For example, the supplier supplies the raw material to the manufacturer, supplier to the supplier, then so supplier has to source the raw material, or he has to say process the raw materials to be further processed by the manufacturer. So those are the activities that are taken up at the supplier level. So he has to pass on whatever he has I mean prepared in terms of raw material to the manufacturer. So manufacturer in turn he transforms the supplies, that is raw materials, into a product or a service. So there are cycles within each partners that are happening, and that is connected to the next partner in line. So that is what is a cycle view. And push and pull view, say push view, say the manufacturers they keep on producing and they store it in their warehouses, and they look at the market to push their products to the customers, pushing. They do not measure really what is actually the demand would be in a particular market based on the heuristic knowledge, or based on the past experience. They know how much to produce. There is a problem with this push kind of view. There is another view, pull view. So pull view gets triggered, say when the customer places an order, the chain starts reacting. Say customer places an order to the retailer, then retailer passes on the order to the distributor in turn to the manufacturer, and manufacturer in turn to the, it flows backwards. So the customer demand or customer requirement pulls the whole chain to act. So this is what is the push or pull cycle. So let me get into the drivers of supply chain performance. So we need to say, I have told you what is supply chain management. Supply chain management looks at efficiency and responsiveness. So performance is usually measured in terms of efficiency and the responsiveness. For a supply chain to be efficient, so these are the drivers that have to be concentrated upon, and any corrective measures or any adjustments have to be made here. So these are the four drivers. Inventory, transportation, facility, and information. So forecasting in a supply chain. So I have been talking to you about the push and pull processes. In both the processes, forecasting is important. Forecasting is nothing but trying to predict the future using the past information, right? So forecasting, say usually the long term forecasts are less accurate than short term forecasts, and it is the aggregated forecast for the aggregated materials would be better than non-aggregated, disaggregated forecasts. There are two types of methods through which forecasting is done, qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative is basically it is a kind of the forecast that is made based on the past experience, past understanding of a particular event, particular demand or a supply of a particular product in a particular market. Whereas quantitative relies more on the past information that have been documented in terms of some data, and we can always do some statistical analysis of the past data and try to predict the future. That is what is a quantitative forecasting. So this forecasting is required to estimate the demand in the marketplace from the customers, either through the push process or the pull process, or the push process, pull process, or the other views. Distribution is another important aspect in the supply chain, because distribution takes away about 30% of the total cost of the supply chain. So it is a kind of moving the products from one place to the other, and so distribution also takes into account the facilities that are being located in different places. So there are different methodologies to locate the facilities. Facilities are nothing but the infrastructure, for example a distribution infrastructure or a storage infrastructure or a transportation infrastructure. So these are the facilities, these are called facilities. They have to be strategically located to attain the objective of minimizing the cost and maximizing the responsiveness of the demand. Purchasing and inventory management is another area where the whole supply chain management performance and the efficiency bounds on. Like say purchasing is nothing but procuring materials, raw materials, and that itself is a big subject, purchase management. But when you consider supply chains, the purchase policies and purchase strategies of a company, that it relies, it affects to a large extent the profits that are made by the company or the responsiveness of the company in meeting the customers' demand. So there is a purchasing cycle. Say purchasing does not happen automatically. Purchasing has to have different series of steps that will look into the processes in detail and try to look at and concentrate on the efficiency part of the whole chain. And there are 8 R's of purchase parameters, all rights. There are no wrongs here, only rights. Right quality, quantity, price, time, right source, right time of delivery, place of delivery, adopting right procedures, using right contractual methods. And there can be different types of purchasing. So purchasing, again I stress on purchasing because 20% of the total cost of the product depends on the purchasing processes. So there are different types of purchasing: contract purchasing, blanket purchasing, tender purchasing, seasonal purchasing, subcontracting, group purchasing, etc. E-purchasing is the latest one that is being relied globally to source out the materials. So inventory management, so once a purchase is made, the inventory has to be managed. The whole process is based on how you plan for the market, whether it is a push process or a pull process. Both these processes rely on a production planning platform where they try to predict, based on some forecasting tools, they try to predict how much is to be produced and how much is to be transported, how much is to be stored in the warehouses. So these are the 3 issues that critically affects the management of the inventory. Inventories can be say raw material inventory, work in process inventory, or a finished good inventory. So these inventories, as I told you, purchasing is one process, and we need to find out, one of the R's is the right source. We need to find out who supplies what material, at what cost, at what price. So we need to have scoring assessment of the suppliers. There may be a lot of suppliers. For example, if a car has, for example, say 10,000 different spares. So all these 10,000 spares cannot be produced by a single, say for example a Maruti company. So they have to rely on for the, say for example there are say 5,000 6,000 spares that are being bought from the market. For each spare they might rely on 10 to 20 suppliers, and so suppliers would be geographically differentiated. Product wise they might be differentiated, price wise they might be differentiated, quality wise, supplier scheduling wise, the flexibility wise, etc., etc. So one has to be, the suppliers have to be continuously assessed for their performance to make the whole purchasing process a more efficient one. So another area in supply chain management is the warehouse. The warehouse is a commercial building or a premise that is designed for bulk storage of either raw materials or the finished products. So we need warehouses because warehouses is a part of facility that I was talking about earlier, which drives the total supply chain performance and supply chain management principles. We need warehouses to store the perishables, food grains, and to meet the unseasonal demand. Usually the agricultural products, for example, they are produced very seasonally. They need to be stored. They need to be stored and made available to the consumers or for the processing manufacturers throughout the year, so that say the demand from the customers are met. At the same time, price wise a good profit is made by the partners. So there are different types of warehouses: private, public, bonded. Private is owned by the private investments, and public is owned by the government, and the bonded is usually owned by the government located near the airports and the seaports. So we need to have a good warehousing practices. There are GWP, we call that, good warehousing practices, to keep the materials that are stored inside the warehouses very safe and ready to be delivered at any point of time that is in demand. So transportation is another area where the supply chain management usually concentrates upon to make the processes efficient. So transportation helps us to move the product from one place to the other place, as I have been mentioning earlier. So these days production takes place, say for example throughout the world, and the consumption also happens to be throughout the world. So necessarily the production and consumption centers have to be bridged upon or networked. So both these centers are can be termed as facilities, and that is one important driver of the supply chain management. So there are different factors that affect the transportation decisions. The carrier means the way, the mode through which we try to transport the materials, the products, final products. So we need to look at the costs, fixed operating costs, trip related costs, quantity related costs, and overhead costs. In terms of shipper who ships the product from one place to the other, he would always look into the transportation cost, and that is one reason for which, say, you might be knowing many of the car companies that intend to export their cars, they are usually located on the coastal areas and nearer to the ship ports, ports, seaports. Shipper would always look at the cost of moving his produce to different markets, then inventory, how much he would transport, what would be the cost of the facility, shipping facility itself, the processing cost and service level cost. And there can be different ways of transportation: airways, roadways, railways, waterways, and pipeline. Pipeline is usually used for the transporting the gas. So friends, I have talked about the important drivers of supply chain management. So these are the forces that drive the supply chain management. The objective of the supply chain management is to strike a balance between responsiveness and efficiency, as we discussed. So certain products are to be delivered in a very quick way, compromising the cost, the efficiency. For example, say one can always send a courier post through, for example, the FedEx or the local couriers. So when you choose the local courier, it might take a lot of time. For example, if you are sending a post from here to Canada, it would take, say, 6 or 7 days, a local courier. If you are going to choose FedEx, the delivery would be assured in 2 days, and one can track and trace where his post is. So and you need to pay a very high check for sending your product through, say for example, the FedEx. So there is a kind of balance that one needs to look at, depending upon the importance, the value of the product, importance of the product, the importance of the product to the customer, and the time at which it is required. So these are the drivers which in turn drive the whole supply chain to be more efficient or more responsive. So that is to be decided by that should be a balanced kind of a process. So I have been talking about these important drivers, and the recent development is e-supply chain management, where the supply chain management happens through the internet. intranet, virtual private networks. So the Dell is the classic example of the supply chain management. Dell has say 6 or 7 hubs throughout the world, assembly hubs. One such assembly hub is in Singapore, right. So they don't in turn produce anything, they just assemble their suppliers from different parts of the world, right. They assemble the product and supply to the nearby markets. For example, if a person from India places an order over the internet for a laptop, it reaches the hub of Dell at Singapore. It is a kind of a pull process, the whole chain is triggered, then the product is finally supplied to the customer by the Dell hub from Singapore. So the process is fast and the customer has a choice. He can always there is a kind of a flexibility built into it. He can always try to do some changes in the configurations he want in the laptop. So these are the facilities that are entwined with e-supply chain management. So when we look at e-supply chain management, it can be internal as well as external. Internal supply chains, say if a manufacturer, he looks at internally what is to be done. So he looks at the different aspects and tries to improve the processes, right. That is internal. Customer relationship management is one where customers are focused for better relationship over a period of time for improving their market potential. I have tried to explain you in nutshell, I have tried to explain you the importance of supply chain management and what drives the supply chain management. So you need to go through, this is a subject which cannot be discussed in a short time. So you need to go through the Manage website or books, like Peter Meindl on supply chain management to understand it in a better way. Thank you.